Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome, dear students. This is Biochemistry 2 course and code Chem 342. Today we are having lecture 41 and today's topic is amino acid hormones. This is your teacher Dr. Naeem Khan, Associate Professor, Department of Chemistry, class. Outlines for today's topic. Today we will talk about thyroid gland, which is amino acid hormone producing gland. So we will discuss description of thyroid gland. Then we will go toward chemistry and metabolism of thyroidal hormones, the hormones produced by thyroid gland. We will talk about their chemistry and their interconversion, that is metabolism. Then we will highlight the important functions of thyroid hormones. Then we will go to the another amino acid hormone producing gland, that is adrenal medulla. So we will highlight the important description of adrenal medulla. Then we will highlight the chemistry and metabolism of hormones produced by the by the adrenal medulla, and at the end we will point out the important functions of adrenal medulla hormones. So in today's topic of amino acid hormones, we have two glands, thyroid gland and adrenal medulla. Actually, the hormones produced by these two glands are amino acid hormones. And we will point out the chemistry, metabolism of the hormones produced by these two glands, thyroid gland and adrenal medulla. And we will point out the important functions of hormones produced by these two glands. Let's have a start. Hormones which are included in the amino acid hormones class, they are actually those ones which are amino acid derivatives. We know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So the hormones which are derived from amino acid, their structural resemblance can be noted that they are similar to the amino acids. So they are amino acid derivatives. So all the hormones produced by the adrenal medulla or thyroid gland are those which are derived from amino acids. So the hormones included in this class are the amino acid derivatives. Two glands which are releasing such hormones, they are include thyroid gland and adrenal medullary. Adrenal medulla and thyroid both are secreting the hormones which come into the class of this amino acid derivatives. Thyroid is very well known, and they are secreting hormones known as thyroidal hormones. The hormones secreted by thyroid gland are called thyroidal hormones. Thyroid is actually gland which is the largest endocrine gland in the body. There are so many glands, different types of glands which are producing hormones, and endocrine glands are the ductless glands. Thyroid is one of them that is having no duct to secrete their secretion. Rather, thyroid gland is secreting their hormonal secretion into the body, into blood. This is the largest gland, and it was named as thyroid. Why? Because its shape is just like in the form of a shield. So there is a word thyroid is from Greek, which means shield shape. So thyroid gland is so named because of its shape similarity, just like a shield. So thyroides from Greek language and it is named as shield. Shield shape, so thyroid. Actually, thyroid has two lobes on either side and anterior to trachea below larynx. It is located below larynx and on the interior side of trachea. And one lobe is on one side and one lobe of the thyroid gland is on another side. The two lobes are connected through a bridge which is called isthmus, and that is making the gland more or less in the form of its shape. Thyroid gland is its shaped, and one lobe is on this side, another lobe is on this side, and the two lobes are linked by isthmus. We can see the shape like this. This is thyroid gland location, this is trachea, this is larynx. So it is on the interior side of the below the larynx, having two lobes. One lobe is this one lobe is this one, and the two lobes are linked by isthmus. So in general, its shapes is just like H. So thyroid gland is in the form of H shape, and in general we can see it is like a shield. So that's why it was named as shield shape or thyroides from Greek. Thyroid gland is from the structure point of view. It is composed of closed vesicles, which is known as follicles. They are composed of follicles. Follicles are closed vesicles. Each follicle is lined with single peripheral layer of epithelial cells that secrete into the interior of the cells. Structural point of view, thyroid gland is composed of follicles, and the follicles are made up of peripheral layer of cells, which are called epithelioid cells, and they are secreting their secretion into the interior of the cell. Here we can see these are follicles, and these are the form of closed vesicles, and these are made up of the peripheral layer cell. This is the peripheral layer cell which are secreting their secretion into the interior of the cells. Uh, the follicles lumen, that is composed of a secretory substance called colloid. Here we can see colloid, and major constituent of the colloid is the large protein called thyroglobulin, which contain thyroid hormones. Actually, thyroid gland is here in the form of thyroglobulin that is stored, which is secreted by this periphery line of cells into the anterior lumen, and that is laying here is colloid, and the colloid contain large protein, which is thyroglobulin, and that is containing the hormone. Thyroid contain large amounts of iodine bound to a glycoprotein called iodothyroglobulin, or simply thyroglobulin, which is the storage form of thyroidal hormones. Thyroidal hormones are actually, when released, they are stored in the form of iodothyroglobulin or simply thyroglobulin. And this thyroid gland contain a large amount of iodine, and this iodine is actually in the form of iodothyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin is when hydrolyzed in the presence of thyrotropin, that is released thyroxine, which is chemically 3,5, 3 prime 5 prime tetraiodothyronine T4 in the blood. Actually, this is the hormone T4. Thyroid gland contains thyroglobulin, and which is hydrolyzed is releasing T4 hormone, yani tetraiodothyronine. Here we can see the structure tetra. One iodine is here, another is here, and third one is here, and fourth one is here. Actually, because for differences, it is named as 3, 3, 3, 5, and 3 prime 5 prime tetraiodothyroxine. And here we can see the structure resemblance to amino acid. Look, it is having alpha carbon, which is attached to the acid group, and the same carbon is linked to amino group. We know that for an amino acid, we know it is having acid group and amino group, both are linked to the alpha carbon atom. The same is here. Just the difference we can see is here is with the phenyl group we have two iodo, and with the oxygen of the phenylalanine another group is attached. So actually from the structural point of view we can see that thyroxine is actually the derivative of alanine or phenylalanine. So this is one of the amino acid derivative hormone that is produced by thyroid gland, and thyroid gland is producing it in the form of storage form, thyroglobulin, which on hydrolysis then releasing thyroxine. What is thyroxine? Thyroxine is one of the thyroid hormone, which is actually chemically 3,5,3'5' tetraiodothyronine. And the structure we can see here, just an amino acid derivative and having structural resemblance, having 4 iodine attached at 3,5 and 3,5 prime position. Thyroxine is an iodine-containing aromatic amino acid and closely resembles tyrosine in structure. So it's having structural resemblance to tyrosine. The second thyroidal hormone, along with the tetraiodose, it is producing a triiodothyronine, and that is T3 or simply TIT. 3,5,3' triiodothyronine. This is another one. Triiodothyronine is produced from enzymatic hydrolysis of thyroglobulin. And TIT, which is triiodothyronine, is actually 5 to 10 times more potent in biologic activity than T4. This is uniqueness. And in the structure, we can see the same structure. The only difference we see here is at fifth position, we have no iodine. Thyroid gland is producing basically two hormones, both are iodine containing hormone, and one is the tetraiodo and the second one is the triiodo. That is T4 and T3. We can see TIT for T3. This is the same hormone, the derivative of the tyrosine, and here we can see again having acid group and amino group both are attached to the alpha carbon and having some structural derivatives linked. This is 3,5,3' triiodotyrosine, and it can be noted here that from tyrosine, that is from T4, this T3 is having 5 to 10 times more potency, more activity than T4. This high potency of triiodothyronine is because it is bound loosely by serum proteins and hence diffuses more rapidly into the tissues. This is another important aspect highlighted. Why T3 is more potent, and explanation is given here because it is loosely bound to the serum proteins and its diffusion is more rapidly into the tissue. Remember, a hormone will be having activity when it is diffused into the cells. And for its diffusion into the cell, it must pass into the blood, into the tissues easily. So here it is mentioned quite clearly that this hormone is linked very loosely to the serum proteins, so can easily diffuse into the tissues, and here therefore its activity is more in the T4. What are the functions of thyroidal glands, thyroidal hormones, thyroxine and triiodothyronine, T4 or T3? Thyroid hormones T4 and T3 have effects on bone tissue formation. This is making the bone tissue, teeth growth, face contour, and of the body proportion. It maintains the body proportion, which is very, very important. Any slight variation will disturb the whole body proportion and the body will change into the non-equilibrium state. They carry out the following functions. Thyroid hormone T3 and T4 bring about the deamination reaction in the liver. Deamination is a very important reaction where the amino acid nitrogen is released, lost of NH2, usually in the form of ammonia, which is later on converted to other forms. So all the important deamination reaction in the liver takes place because of this hormone. They carry deiodination in the extrahepatic tissues. They are also carrying this important reaction of deiodination in the hepatic tissues, extrahepatic tissues. They influence oxidative phosphorylation by altering the permeability of the mitochondrial membrane. This hormone T3 and T4 is changing the permeability of the mitochondrial membrane. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. These mitochondria are carrying out the important reactions of oxidative phosphorylation. We know that oxidative phosphorylation is coupled with the ATP synthesis. So, these hormones are actually affecting the permeability, and so in this way, they are allowing more things sometimes to pass in, and that's are required for the oxidative phosphorylation. So, oxidative phosphorylation is dependent upon these hormones. These hormones also accelerate the metamorphosis in amphibia. We know that in amphibia, just like in frog, they have different stages during their development, and that is called metamorphosis. Actually, these hormones accelerate the metamorphosis in the amphibian. That a tadpole has been widely used to assay of the potency of chicken because the tadpole is affected by these hormones. So these tadpole is used as a standard. Thyroid hormone actually increases the level of the cytochrome C. That is the tissues which important in the electron transport chain. Electron transport chain have different components, and the important components these include cytochrome C as well. And these are actually electron carriers. And in the electron transport chain, actually electrons are transferred from the high energy acceptor to the lower, and the meanwhile energy release is then used for the oxidative phosphorylation, that is conversion of ADP to ATP. Here, thyroid hormones actually increase the cytochrome C, and they are important components. So we can say that these hormones are responsible for the cytochrome C components which are required by the electron transport chain. So if they are not perform this function, which would mean that cytochrome C will not be available for electron transport chain. So indirectly they will also affecting the oxidative phosphorylation or the energy currency decrease. Thus, in general, we can say thyroid hormones affect metabolism regardless of the nature of its specific activity. It is having specific functions, we know, but it has effect on metabolism we saw here. It is for this reason that thyroid gland has rightly been called as pace setter of the endocrine system. It is the pace setter because it is affecting the metabolism, and that's why it is called as pace setters. Coming to the next harm gland, this gland is adrenal medulla, and it is also producing hormones that are coming into the category of the thyroid, that amino acid derivative hormones. Adrenal medulla. We know that a pair of adrenal glands are situated anterior to the kidneys. On the anterior side of the kidneys, the pair of adrenal medulla. This is a kidney structure having ureter, and adrenal medulla is somewhere here on the anterior side that is linked. Uh, Adrenal glands are linked here. Adrenal medulla is actually the central core of the adrenal gland. The central part of that adrenal gland is called adrenal medulla. Here we can see that if we take the structure, we can see that the interior part is a medulla and the outer part is the cortex. So here, if we cut from the taxonomy, we can see that adrenal part from here is the medulla and the exterior part is the cortex. So adrenal medulla is actually the central core part of the adrenal gland that is located interior to the kidneys. This part is composed of the packed polyhedral cells. This is polyhedral cell packed together and they are containing chromaffin granules. Chromaffin granules are laid here and actually these are responsible for the secretion. Chromaffin granules store large quantities of adrenal medullary hormones and they are secreted whenever they are required. From structural point of view, adrenal medulla is actually the central part of the adrenal glands. They are located anteriorly to the kidneys, and the central part or the adrenal medulla is actually composed of polyhedral cells. We can see here, and these cells are containing chromaffin granules which store large quantities of the adrenal medullary hormones. So they are decreased from here whenever they are required. Under the nervous system control, adrenal medulla is actually secreting two hormones. One is the epinephrine, which is also known as adrenaline, and its molecular formula is C9H13O3N. And another one is the non-epinephrine or non-adrenaline, which is C8H11O3N. Here we can see that hydrogen, two hydrogen and one carbon is in short. Chemically, both these hormones are catecholamines, dihydroxyphenylamines. Actually, both these are dihydroxyphenylamines and they are closely related to tyrosine and phenylalanine. As we highlighted in the start, that hormones included in this class are those which are amino acid similarity in structure, so they are called amino acid derivatives or amino acid hormones. These two hormones released by the adrenal medulla, they are epinephrine and non-epinephrine. Actually, both are dihydroxyphenylamines and they have structural resemblance to tyrosine and phenylalanine. Here we can see. If we remove this thing, we will say this is phenylalanine. So this is the phenylalanine derivative. Again, we can see here we have amino group attached just like in the similar way that is an amino acid, but acyl group is missing here. And we have hydroxyl group that is the derivative from phenylalanine. Hydrogen is replaced by the OH group. This is non-epinephrine and this is epinephrine. What is the structural differences? Here, one hydrogen of the amino group is replaced by the methyl group. So this is epinephrine, and if this methyl group is removed by hydrogen, this is non-epinephrine. Structure can be traced in the GLJ Biochemistry textbook. Non-epinephrine difference from epinephrine in having hydrogen atom in place of methyl group. In place of this methyl group, here we have hydrogen. This commonly available epinephrine is a mixture of two hormones, that is 10 to 20% norepinephrine, and its effects is a resultant of the combined action of both hormones. Actually, epinephrine not alone available naturally, and commonly it is occurring as mixture 10 to 20% epinephrine is also mixed with it. And the effects is actually because of the combined effects of those two hormones. Epinephrine and norepinephrine are actually producing a combined action. And always epinephrine is containing 10 to 20% norepinephrine. So any action is actually attributed to the combined action of these two hormones. These hormones possess an asymmetric carbon atom. Two stereoisomers are possible for each one of them. Asymmetric carbon, actually they are having carbon carbon, and because of the carbon there are two isomers are possible. Naturally occurring epinephrine is L isomer and is levoretry, which is 15 times more active than D form. L and D isomerism is a very very common for in the biochemistry, and the L and D isomers are actually differ from one another based on the rotation of the groups on the chiral carbon and distant from the functional group. It is mentioned here that the L isomer is actually 15 times more active than the D isomer. Similarly, natural D, which is actually levoretatory, is of norepinephrine is about 20 times more potent than the unnatural isomer. So these are different activity functions of the two hormones. Coming to the the relative proportions of hormones in the adrenal medulla differ from species to species. Which hormones will be more, which will be less? This is actually dependent upon the species. One species from going from one species to another species, this concentration actually varies. Here we can see that in humans, the epinephrine is 70 to 90 and norepinephrine is 25 to 10%. And actually in cat, this decreases to 50-50, but in whale fish, it is 10% epinephrine and 90% norepinephrine. So the proportion of the epinephrine, norepinephrine is dependent upon the species to species, is species specified. Coming to the functions of adrenal medullary hormones, epinephrine conducts a variety of functions. These are including promotes glucogenolysis. Glycogenolysis is important because in the body, whenever there is a decrease in the carbohydrate in the glucose concentration, glycogen is broken down and the glucose is released into the bloodstream that is utilized to maintain the glucose level constant. So this actually promoting the glycogenolysis in the muscle and liver, that is resulting in the increase of blood glucose level. We know that maintaining glucose at constant level is very, very important. Any alteration in this is causing serious damages. That increase the blood pressure because of the arterial vasoconstriction of the skin is plastic vessels. Actually, vessels constriction, they actually constrict the vessels, and when the vessels are constricted, the blood pressure increases because when the flow is restricted, pressure will be increased. They increase the heart rate and the cardiac output. Actually, the heartbeat rate is increased and the output from the heart is increased. They cause the dilation of the vessel, vasodilation, vessel expansion of the skeletal muscles. They relaxes the muscles of the gastrointestinal tract and bronchioles of the lungs, but causes contraction of the pyrolic and erectorial sphincter muscles. Under stress, with that is in the fear and anger, epinephrine shifts the blood to the brain and muscle, and the individual become ready to fight. This is another important function of the epinephrine, and that under the fear and anger, epinephrine shifts more blood to the brain and muscle, and the individual becomes ready to fight. So it can be also called known as emergency gland because it is required in the emergency of fear and anger. This is emergency gland or gland of fight. And the two intermediary hormones are therefore emergency hormones. So, because of this function, these hormones are required at the time of anger and fear. So, they are also called emergency hormones. Norepinephrine increases both systolic and diastolic pressure. And here we can see that important functions are epinephrine and norepinephrine are heart rate, the cardiac output, systolic blood pressure is increased in the same by norepinephrine. And if we come here, the total peripheral resistance is negative by epinephrine, but it is double positive by norepinephrine. So here the important functions are manipulated here. Dear student, once again, the Western Todd textbook and the GLJ are recommended. Please go to these books and thoroughly study of today's topic, the adrenal medullary hormones and the thyroid gland hormones, the hormones produced by the thyroid T4 and T3, and the adrenal medullary by epinephrine and norepinephrine. These four hormones we studied today. The important things of these hormones are the chemistry, that is structures, their important functions. uh, I will suggest to elaborate each and every point we discussed today. For any confusion we may discuss next time. From today onward, I will say thank you. Until the next lecture, I will say goodbye. Allah Hafiz.